The video wasn't supposed to get out. That's the thing about leaked footage. It shows what really happens when the cameras aren't rolling and the PR spin doctors aren't in control. And what this backstage clip revealed about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's grand entrance at the World Mental Health Day festival in New York, absolutely devastating. We're talking career-ending, image-obliterating, brutal reality check devastating. Meghan and Harry walked into Spring Studios fresh off being crowned Humanitarians of the Year. You'd think that title alone would command some respect, right? Some acknowledgement? Maybe a polite round of applause? Instead, what the leaked video captured was stone-cold silence. Not the respectful kind of silence either. This was the uncomfortable, nobody cares, why are they even here kind of silence that makes your stomach drop just watching it. One person looked up. Let that sink in for a moment. A couple who once had the entire world watching their every move, analyzing their every gesture, couldn't get more than a single glance from a room full of people at an event they were supposedly headlining. Everyone else stayed locked on their phones, sipping coffee, chatting amongst themselves, completely unbothered by the so-called royal entrance happening right in front of them. The body language alone told the entire story. Harry walked ahead, breaking their usual united front routine. Meghan followed behind, and here's where it gets interesting. No hand-holding. Zero physical connection. For a couple whose entire brand has been built on that we're so deeply in love, we can't function separately narrative, the absence of their trademark gesture screamed louder than any speech they'd give that day. Sources close to the event whispered that Meghan's team had orchestrated a fashionably late arrival, banking on that dramatic entrance factor. They wanted heads turning, phones lifting, that electric moment of recognition. What they got instead was the kind of reception you'd give to someone who showed up at the wrong wedding. Awkward doesn't even begin to cover it. But here's what makes this leaked footage so absolutely explosive. This wasn't some random charity event or low-key appearance. This was World Mental Health Day, a cause they've claimed as their personal platform, their area of expertise, their reason for stepping back from royal duties in the first place. Mental health advocacy is supposed to be their thing. And yet, when they showed up to champion it, the crowd collectively shrugged. The video has been making rounds in private circles for days now, with palace insiders claiming it's the most honest depiction of where Meghan and Harry actually stand in the public eye. Not the carefully curated Instagram posts, not the strategically released statements, just raw, unfiltered indifference from real people who couldn't be bothered to pretend anymore. And that indifference? It's about to unravel everything they've spent years trying to build. They expected a moment. What they got was a massacre of their carefully constructed image. When Meghan Markle and Prince Harry strolled through those doors at Spring Studios, you could practically see the script playing out in their heads. Red carpet energy, gasps of recognition, maybe even a few emotional tears from supporters moved by their presence. Reality had other plans. The crowd didn't just ignore them, they were actively disinterested. People kept scrolling through their phones like nothing had happened. Coffee cups stayed lifted to lips. Conversations continued without missing a beat. It was the kind of non-reaction that's almost worse than hostility, because at least hostility acknowledges your existence. This was pure, unadulterated indifference served cold. Harry's decision to walk ahead of Meghan sent shockwaves through royal watching circles. For years, they've maintained this synchronized partnership aesthetic, always side by side, always touching, always projecting unity. But on this day, Harry led the way while Meghan trailed behind, her smile frozen in place like someone trying desperately to pretend everything was fine when clearly nothing was fine. Insiders claim Meghan spent those first few seconds scanning the room, waiting for the recognition that never came. Her eyes reportedly darted from face to face, searching for even a flicker of excitement or acknowledgement. What she found instead were blank stares and turned backs. One person in the crowd literally checked their watch while they walked past. The disrespect was palpable. The absence of hand-holding became its own storyline within minutes of them sitting down. Twitter erupted with speculation. Had they fought backstage? Was the united front finally cracking under pressure? Sources suggest something far more calculated might be at play. Word on the street is that Meghan's team advised them to appear more independent, less clingy, more serious and professional. If that was the strategy, it backfired spectacularly, because what it actually conveyed was distance and disconnection. Behind closed doors, people are saying the couple arrived expecting VIP treatment and got the exact opposite. No special seating arrangements materialized. No one rushed over to greet them. Security didn't need to hold back eager fans because there weren't any eager fans to hold back. They were just two more people in a room full of attendees who had their own reasons for being there, and those reasons had nothing to do with Meghan and Harry. The buzz in royal circles suggests this wasn't even the worst part of their day. That silent entrance was just the opening act. What came next during their speeches and panel appearances would cement this event as a full-blown PR disaster. But even in those first 30 seconds captured in that leaked footage, the damage was already done. Their humanitarian crowns were slipping, and everyone in that room could see it happening in real time. The question wasn't whether their image was taking a hit anymore. The question was whether it could survive what was coming next. fresh off being named Humanitarians of the Year, and they couldn't even get a polite golf clap. Let that irony marinate for a second. You get handed one of the most prestigious titles in charitable work. You show up to an event centered around a cause you claim to champion, and the room treats you like background noise. Something isn't adding up, and people are starting to notice. The Humanitarian Award itself has become a lightning rod for controversy. Critics immediately questioned what exactly Meghan and Harry had done to earn such a lofty title. Their Archwell Foundation has faced scrutiny for spending more on salaries than actual charitable work. Their mental health initiatives consist mostly of podcast episodes and carefully staged appearances. Meanwhile, actual humanitarians working in war zones, refugee camps, and disaster areas watch this couple collect awards for what exactly? Talking about their feelings on camera? Palace insiders whisper that the disconnect between their title and their reception at Spring Studios exposes a fundamental truth the Sussex PR machine has been desperately trying to bury. People are exhausted. Exhausted by the constant victimhood narratives, exhausted by the endless PR stunts disguised as advocacy, exhausted by watching two incredibly privileged individuals lecture the world about struggles they've never actually faced. The crowd's indifference wasn't random or coincidental. It was a message, a collective statement that performative activism has an expiration date, and Meghan and Harry's has long since passed. You can only cry wolf so many times before people stop listening. You can only rebrand yourself as a humanitarian so many times before people demand receipts. And when those receipts don't materialize, when the work doesn't match the words, the public checks out completely. Reports are surfacing that even within progressive circles, the couple's credibility has taken a nosedive. Sources close to actual mental health organizations claim there's growing frustration with how Meghan and Harry have commercialized and sensationalized mental health advocacy. Real therapists, counselors, and non-profit workers are putting in the daily grind without cameras or accolades, and then they watch these two swoop in for photo ops and award ceremonies. The resentment is building. Industry insiders suggest their humanitarian label is becoming more liability than asset. Brands that once clamored to associate with the Sussex name are quietly backing away. Partnerships that seemed solid are suddenly being renegotiated or dissolved entirely. The golden couple aura has tarnished, and that tarnish is spreading fast. When you build your entire post-royal identity on being humanitarian champions, and the public stops buying at what's left, the leaked footage from that entrance crystallizes everything critics have been saying for months. The emperor has no clothes. The Humanitarian Award winners have no genuine connection to the causes they claim to represent. And most damaging of all, the people who should be their biggest supporters, the attendees at a mental health festival, couldn't be bothered to acknowledge their presence. That's not just a bad day. That's a brand in absolute freefall. And everyone except Meghan and Harry seems to understand the severity of the situation. Harry took the stage with all the confidence of someone who genuinely believed people wanted to hear what he had to say. He launched into his prepared remarks about anxiety and depression during the pandemic, painting a picture of universal struggle and collective trauma. The problem? His version of pandemic hardship looked wildly different from everyone else's, and people noticed immediately. Let's get real for a moment. While Harry spoke about the mental toll of lockdown, millions of people were crammed into tiny apartments, losing jobs, watching loved ones die over video calls, rationing groceries, and wondering how they'd pay rent. Harry, meanwhile, was isolated in a 16-bathroom Montecito mansion with a private chef, personal security, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. The disconnect wasn't just tone-deaf, it was offensive. Social media erupted within minutes of clips from his speech hitting the internet. People weren't just criticizing his words, they were furious. Comments flooded in from nurses who worked triple shifts in COVID wards, from teachers who taught through screens while managing their own kids at home, from small business owners who lost everything. And they all had the same question: what exactly does Harry know about real pandemic struggle? Sources close to the event claim Harry's speech was peppered with references to feeling trapped and overwhelmed during lockdown, trapped in a mansion worth $14 million, overwhelmed while signing multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify. The lack of self-awareness was staggering. Did no one on his team think to maybe workshop those talking points? Did nobody suggest that comparing his isolation and luxury to actual suffering might not land well? The irony cuts even deeper when you remember that Harry and Meghan spent lockdown telling everyone how difficult it was to be rich and famous. Their infamous Oprah interview, filmed during the height of the pandemic, focused almost entirely on their personal grievances while the world burned around them. And now here was Harry, on stage at a mental health festival, essentially repeating the same narrative. Poor us, life is so hard, please feel sorry for us. Behind closed doors, people are saying the backlash was immediate and brutal. Mental health advocates who'd initially supported Harry's involvement started publicly distancing themselves. Tweets went viral pointing out that Harry's version of pandemic anxiety involved pool maintenance and deciding which streaming platform to partner with. One particularly savage post compared his struggles to people who actually lost homes, family members, and livelihoods. The ratio was merciless. Palace insiders whisper that even some of Harry's former allies found the speech problematic. There's a way to discuss mental health and privilege simultaneously, acknowledging that struggle exists across all economic levels, while also recognizing that resources provide cushioning. Harry didn't do that. He presented his experience as universal when it was anything but. And in doing so, he alienated the very people he claimed to be advocating for. The humanitarian crown wasn't just slipping anymore, it was actively being ripped off his head by a public that had finally had enough. Then came Meghan's moment. And if you thought Harry's speech was problematic, buckle up. She was introduced to moderate a panel discussion about digital media's impact on children. A serious topic, an important conversation, a chance to let experts shine and amplify voices that actually matter. Instead, Meghan did what Meghan does best. She made it entirely about herself. Within the first 2 minutes, she'd already pivoted from the panel's actual purpose to her own narrative. She talked about parents turning grief into advocacy, which sounds noble until you realize she was positioning herself as one of those grieving parents without specifying what exactly she'd lost. Sources in the audience reported visible eye rolls. People came to hear from child psychologists and digital safety experts. Not another installment of the Meghan Markle victimhood tour. The name-dropping started almost immediately. She squeezed in a humble brag about meeting Katie Couric, dropping the connection like it added credibility to her points. Spoiler alert, it didn't. It just reinforced the perception that Meghan views every platform as an opportunity for self-promotion rather than genuine advocacy. This wasn't about protecting children online. This was about reminding everyone that Meghan knows famous people and wants you to be impressed. She referenced partnerships and data throughout her introduction. But here's the kicker. She didn't actually present any data. No statistics, no research findings, no concrete information that attendees could take home and use. Just vague allusions to work being done and conversations being had. Industry insiders suggest this has become Meghan's signature move. Talk about doing important work without ever showing receipts. Mention partnerships without naming them. Reference data without sharing it. The buzz in Hollywood circles is that Meghan's inability to let others have the spotlight has become a running joke. This panel was supposed to feature actual experts who'd spent years researching digital well-being and child safety online. But Meghan's lengthy, meandering introduction ate up valuable time that could have been spent on substance. By the time she finally handed over to the panelists, half the audience had mentally checked out. Social media picked up on it instantly. Clips of her introduction went viral with captions like, "Imagine being invited to moderate and turning it into a TED Talk about yourself." And Meghan Markle makes children's digital safety about Meghan Markle, shocking absolutely no one. The mockery was swift and unforgiving. People pointed out that this is exactly why invitations to high-profile events have dried up. Nobody wants to hand Meghan a microphone knowing she'll use it for personal branding rather than the intended purpose. Reports are surfacing that panelists were privately frustrated. They'd prepared thoughtful contributions based on actual research and fieldwork. Instead, they found themselves playing supporting roles in the Meghan show. One source close to the event claimed you could feel the tension in the room as she continued talking, seemingly oblivious to the fact that her moment had long expired. It was peak Meghan, and not in a good way. The humanitarian image wasn't just cracking, it was shattering in real time. Here's where the timing gets absolutely brutal. Just 1 day before Harry stood on that stage fumbling through his pandemic privilege speech, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, published a thoughtful, meticulously researched essay on digital disconnection and its impact on mental well-being. The contrast couldn't be more stark, and people noticed immediately. Catherine's piece wasn't about her. It wasn't peppered with personal grievances or celebrity name drops. It was substantive, backed by actual research, and focused entirely on the issue at hand. She collaborated with leading experts in child psychology and digital wellness. She cited studies. She provided actionable insights. She did exactly what Meghan and Harry pretend to do, but never actually deliver on. Palace insiders whisper that the timing wasn't coincidental. Word on the street suggests Harry's team saw Catherine's essay drop and went into full panic mode. Sources close to the situation reveal that Harry's speech was hastily revised on the plane to New York, scrambling to sound relevant and informed. The problem? You can't fake substance. You can't manufacture credibility overnight. And you definitely can't compete with someone who's been doing the actual work while you've been doing press tours. The comparison exploded across social media within hours. Side-by-side posts showed Catherine's evidence-based approach versus Harry's vague vague emotional appeals. Royal commentators pointed out that Catherine has been quietly building relationships with mental health organizations for years, not for photo ops, but for genuine impact. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan swoop in for award ceremonies and festival appearances, collect their humanitarian titles, and disappear until the next PR opportunity arises. Industry insiders suggest Catherine's essay was a masterclass in effective advocacy. She highlighted the work of researchers and practitioners, amplified their voices, and used her platform to drive real conversation forward. There were no mentions of her own struggles, no references to how hard royal life had been for her, no attempts to center herself in a narrative that wasn't about her. Just pure focused advocacy that actually serves the cause rather than personal brand building. Reports are surfacing that even Meghan and Harry's remaining supporters found the contrast uncomfortable. You can't ignore the difference between someone who shows up with homework done and someone who wings it with buzzwords and emotional manipulation. Catherine brought receipts, Harry brought feelings. Catherine elevated experts, Meghan elevated herself. The optics were devastating. Behind closed doors, people are saying this comparison might be the final nail in the Sussex credibility coffin. When you're constantly positioning yourself as more progressive, more authentic, and more impactful than the traditional royals, and then the traditional royals consistently outperform you in substance and execution, what's your angle? Where do you go from there? The brutal truth is that Catherine didn't need to directly address Harry and Meghan. Her work spoke for itself. The depth, the research, the genuine commitment to making a difference, it was all there in black and white. Meanwhile, Harry's speech the next day felt like a student presenting a book report on a book they never actually read. The internet verdict was unanimous. Catherine won, and it wasn't even close. The moment that leaked footage started circulating in media circles, Meghan's PR team went into full crisis mode. Sources close to the situation reveal that emergency conference calls were happening within hours, with publicists scrambling to spin the awkward entrance into anything, that didn't look like a complete disaster. Spoiler alert, they failed spectacularly. The first attempt at damage control was almost comical. Unnamed sources, clearly planted by Team Sussex, started feeding stories to friendly outlets claiming the couple had deliberately arrived fashionably late for dramatic effect. They wanted to make an entrance, the narrative went, not interrupt the programming already in progress. The problem with that spin, the leaked video showed there was no programming in progress. Just people milling around, completely unbothered by their arrival. Industry insiders suggest the PR playbook Meghan's team has been using is starting to fall apart. For years, they've relied on the same tactics. Plant sympathetic stories in certain outlets. Frame every criticism as racism or jealousy. Position Meghan and Harry as perpetual victims of unfair treatment. But when video evidence contradicts your narrative, when people can see with their own eyes what actually happened, the spin stops working. Reports are surfacing that multiple PR firms have quietly distanced themselves from the Sussex account. Word on the street is that representing Meghan and Harry has become more trouble than it's worth. They demand constant crisis management, but refuse to modify the behavior creating the crises. They want positive press, but keep generating negative stories. At some point, even the best publicists throw up their hands and walk away. Behind closed doors, people are saying the leaked footage represents a nightmare scenario for image management. You can spin words, you can reframe context, but you can't spin a room full of people physically turning away from you. That visual is devastating, and no amount of carefully crafted statements can erase what everyone saw with their own eyes. The second wave of damage control attempted to shift focus to the substance of their speeches rather than the reception. Sussex-friendly commentators started pushing narratives about the important work Harry and Meghan are doing, the crucial conversations they're starting, the lives they're supposedly changing. But the public wasn't buying it anymore. People kept pointing back to that entrance, to that silence, to that brutal visual representation of how little impact they actually have. Palace insiders whisper that the leaked footage has become a litmus test within royal circles. It's being shared privately as evidence that the Sussex brand is imploding. Some are reportedly relieved, feeling vindicated after years of watching Meghan and Harry's PR machine paint them as villains. Others apparently feel something closer to pity, watching two people spiral while refusing every lifeline thrown their way. Sources suggest Meghan's team is now considering a full strategic pivot, maybe fewer public appearances, maybe more carefully controlled environments where audiences can be vetted, maybe a retreat from the humanitarian spotlight altogether. But here's the problem with that approach. When your entire post-royal identity is built on being humanitarians, what happens when you abandon the only thing making you relevant? The answer is becoming increasingly clear, and it's not pretty. The internet is forever, and the internet is absolutely merciless. Within hours of that leaked footage surfacing, social media transformed Meghan and Harry's awkward entrance into a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, every platform exploded with memes, commentary, and brutal takedowns that spread faster than any PR team could contain. The clips were everywhere. 10-second loops of Meghan and Harry walking into that room while people scrolled their phones. 15-second cuts of the crowd's total indifference set to cricket sound effects. Slow-motion replays highlighting the exact moment Meghan's smile faltered when she realized nobody cared. The creativity was savage, and the reach was astronomical. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of shares, thousands of comments dissecting every frame. TikTok users had an absolute field day. One viral video compared their entrance to showing up at a party you weren't invited to, complete with sound effects and captions. Another set their walk to that awkward silence music that plays during uncomfortable movie scenes. A particularly brutal edit showed them entering while text overlay read, "When your whole personality is being famous but nobody recognizes you anymore." The likes and shares were off the charts. Twitter became a roasting session that lasted for days. Users competed to deliver the most cutting commentary. They walked in like they owned the place, and the place said, "We don't know you." Imagine being named Humanitarian of the Year and not even getting a courtesy clap. The crowd gave them the same energy Meghan gives to her family. Every tweet more savage than the last. Every thread more detailed in its mockery. The hand-holding absence became its own storyline. Speculation ran wild. Did they finally realize holding hands 24/7 looks desperate? Even their hands don't want to be associated with this mess. The body language screams, "We fought in the car and now we're pretending everything's fine." Relationship experts who'd never been asked weighed in with analysis. Body language specialists dissected every gesture. The content practically wrote itself. Some users went deeper, creating side-by-side comparisons. Meghan and Harry's silent entrance versus actual celebrities getting mobbed at events. Their awkward speeches versus Catherine's substantive essay. Their humanitarian award versus the resumes of people actually doing humanitarian work without cameras following them. The contrasts were damning, and they spread like wildfire across every platform. Instagram comment sections under Sussex fan accounts turned into battlegrounds. Even their most loyal supporters struggled to defend the optics. It was just bad timing. Didn't hold up when people could watch the video themselves. They're being bullied again. Fell flat when the footage showed nobody even acknowledging them enough to bully them. The usual defenses stopped working because the evidence was undeniable. Reports are surfacing that Meghan's team tried to get some content removed, claiming copyright violations or unauthorized distribution. But the clips had already been downloaded, re-uploaded, and shared across too many accounts to control. The internet had spoken, and what it said was brutal, unanimous, and impossible to silence. This wasn't just bad press anymore. This was cultural moment, meme status, permanent internet record territory. And there's absolutely no coming back from that. This isn't just about one awkward entrance or one bad day at a mental health festival. This is about a pattern that's been building for years, and that leaked footage represents the moment when everything finally collapsed under its own weight. The Sussex brand isn't just struggling anymore, it's in absolute freefall, and industry insiders are watching it happen in real time with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. Let's zoom out and look at the wreckage. The Spotify deal that promised groundbreaking podcasts, canceled after Meghan delivered a handful of episodes that underperformed spectacularly. The Netflix contract that was supposed to showcase their creative genius, producing content that barely registers on viewership charts. Their production company Arkswell, more known for internal turnover and staff complaints than actual output. The humanitarian work they built their post-royal identity on, exposed as mostly photo ops and press releases with little substance behind them. Sources in Hollywood whisper that the Sussex name has become toxic. Executives who once fought for meetings with them now dodge their calls. A-list celebrities who publicly supported them early on have quietly unfollowed and distanced themselves. Invitations to major events have dried up. The power couple image they cultivated so carefully has evaporated, leaving behind two people desperately clinging to relevance through whatever scraps of attention they can grab. The financial reality is apparently even grimmer. Reports are surfacing that maintaining their Montecito lifestyle requires income streams that are rapidly disappearing. Security costs alone run into millions annually. The mortgage on that 16-bathroom mansion doesn't pay itself. Staff salaries, legal fees, PR team expenses, it all adds up. And when the deals stop coming, when the partnerships dissolve, when nobody wants to pay for the Sussex brand anymore, where does that leave them? Behind closed doors, people are saying their humanitarian label has become a punchline in non-profit circles. Organizations that work with actual vulnerable populations, that operate on shoestring budgets doing real work without fanfare, have watched Meghan and Harry collect awards and accolades for what amounts to performative activism. The resentment has been building for years. That silent reception at Spring Studios was just the public manifestation of what people in the industry have felt privately all along. Industry insiders suggest the problem is fundamental and unfixable. Their entire brand was built on being victims of the royal family, on being oppressed truth-tellers speaking out against an institution. But that narrative has an expiration date. You can only play the victim card so many times before people stop caring. You can only blame others for your problems for so long before people start questioning your accountability. And when you've burned every bridge, alienated every ally, and exhausted every sympathetic ear, you're left exactly where Meghan and Harry find themselves now, alone in a room where nobody claps. The leaked footage didn't create this freefall, it just documented it. It provided visual evidence of what everyone already knew but could now see with crystal clarity. The emperor has no clothes, the humanitarian has no credibility, and the brand has no future. What happens next isn't a question of if they can recover. It's a question of how far they'll fall before hitting bottom. So where do Meghan and Harry go from here? That's the question burning through royal circles, Hollywood boardrooms, and social media feeds. When your humanitarian image has been obliterated, when leaked footage exposes the gap between your carefully crafted narrative and brutal reality, when even your most loyal supporters struggle to defend you, what's left? Sources close to the couple suggest they're considering a major rebrand. Again, this would be what? The fourth reinvention since leaving royal life? First, they were going to be financially independent while living off Charles's money. Then they were going to be content creators and podcast hosts. Then they pivoted to humanitarian champions and mental health advocates. Now with that image in tatters, insiders whisper they're exploring a return to more private life, less public appearances, fewer speeches, a retreat from the spotlight that's become increasingly hostile. The problem with that strategy? Their entire relevance depends on public visibility. They're not working royals anymore. They don't have the institutional backing of the palace. They're not producing content that people actually want to consume. Their value proposition has always been their fame, their story, their ability to command attention. If they retreat from public life, they become irrelevant. If they stay in public life, they face continued mockery and declining influence. It's a lose-lose situation entirely of their own making. Reports are surfacing that more damaging footage might exist. Palace insiders hint that the leaked backstage video wasn't the only camera rolling that day. Sources suggest there could be additional clips showing awkward interactions, uncomfortable moments, or revealing conversations that haven't surfaced yet. The threat of more leaks apparently has Meghan's team on edge, knowing they can't control a narrative when video evidence keeps contradicting their spin. Behind closed doors, people are speculating about their financial future. The major deals have dried up. The humanitarian awards won't pay the mortgage. Netflix might not renew their contract. Spotify already cut ties. What revenue streams are left? Some suggest they'll pivot to lower-tier partnerships, maybe wellness brands or lifestyle products. Others think they'll write more books, squeeze more interviews, milk whatever remaining celebrity value they possess. Either way, the trajectory is downward. The bigger question is whether their relationship can survive the pressure. Speculation about tension between them has been building for months. The lack of hand-holding at Spring Studios fed into existing rumors. Some sources suggest Meghan blames Harry for not defending her enough. Others claim Harry resents being pulled away from his family for a Hollywood dream that's imploding. The truth is probably somewhere in between, but the cracks are showing. What's clear is this: the leaked footage from that mental health festival will follow them forever. It's visual proof that their humanitarian image was always smoke and mirrors, that their influence was always overestimated, that the public had grown tired of their act long before they realized it themselves. Whether they can rebuild from here remains to be seen, but the outlook isn't promising. Sometimes you can't recover from being exposed. Sometimes the fall is permanent. And sometimes the crowd's silence says everything that needs to be said. So what do you think? Can Meghan and Harry salvage their reputation, or is this the beginning of the end? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is waiting, and trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.